Hey, you're here. That's good. Before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe and tap the like button. It helps more than you know. Now, shall we begin? Let me tell you about a day that tasted of dust and effort, 1,000 years before convenience was even a concept. The figure stirs slowly, their eyes reluctantly opening to a reality utterly devoid of modern comfort. There is no gentle glow from a bedside lamp, no consistent, regulated warmth from a central heating system. Instead, a pale, anemic sliver of pre-dawn light struggles to force its way through a narrow, unglazed opening positioned high on the wall, a wall constructed of rough mud brick or crumbling plaster, characteristic of their cramped Roman room. This light is frugal, almost a hesitant whisper, entirely insufficient to banish the deep, oppressive shadows that cling stubbornly to every corner, yet just enough to dimly outline the coarse, uneven textures of the wall itself and reveal the familiar, cracked earthenware jug. This jug, leaning precariously in the corner, remains half full of yesterday's stagnant water, a faint, almost oily sheen on its surface weakly reflecting the scant illumination. The air within this confined space is notably heavy and thick, saturated with the pungent, persistent scent of last night's oil lamp smoke, its acrid aroma clinging tenaciously to the coarse fabric of the worn tunic they are wearing. This combines with the damp, earthy smell emanating from the packed earth floor or the splintered, old wooden planks that serve as the foundation of their dwelling. And then there is something else, a subtle yet undeniably acrid and inescapable undertone. The ever-present, ubiquitous odor of Rome's bustling, often unsanitary, urban life. For this person, unlike many in the modern world, there is no luxurious, soft mattress beneath their body, no plush pillow designed to cradle their head in comfort. Instead, they are met with the familiar, unyielding embrace of a thin straw mat, spread directly on the hard, unforgiving surface, be it the rough packed earth that defines the floor of their humble abode, or the creaking, splintered wooden planks that groan in protest with every slight shift of weight. Every joint in their body, from the neck to the ankles, protests with a silent, aching complaint as they attempt to push themselves upright, a physical acknowledgement of a life lived under relentless, constant physical demands. It is a daily, often brutal, negotiation with the harsh, uncompromising realities of the ancient world. Their back, in particular, aches with a familiar, dull throb, a persistent souvenir of countless nights spent on this relentlessly unforgiving surface. For this individual, the concept of a rest day that can be neatly scheduled into a calendar simply does not exist. There are no weekends, no recognized holidays that might offer a respite from the implacable rhythm of sheer survival. It is simply the unchangeable, demanding pulse of existence itself, relentlessly demanding their full presence and their waning strength, with the arrival of each new sunrise. Before you get too comfortable listening, take a second to let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's nice to see who's here. Back to story. They remain there, motionless, for a fleeting moment, simply listening to the world slowly awakening around them. The world outside their humble dwelling is still predominantly quiet, largely enveloped in the soft, ethereal gloom of dawn, but it is not entirely silent. One can just barely discern, even if faintly, the rhythmic, distant clang of a metalworker's hammer, already at work in a workshop opened in some nearby alley. Or perhaps, the low, familiar rumble of a heavy cart being pushed laboriously over uneven cobblestones, sounds as ancient and enduring as the city's very foundation itself, a stark testament to the unending labor that, in Rome, truly never ceases. A faint murmur, perhaps the muffled voices of other early risers from another part of their insula, their shared tenement building, a vast, vertical cluster of countless lives, drifts softly and indistinctly through the thin, porous walls. It's a low hum, almost imperceptible against the backdrop of the waking city, a colossal human hive beginning to stir and stretch. Long before the sun's first direct rays touch the dusty streets below, their mind, still partly cloaked in the lingering remnants of restless, fragmented dreams, begins the immediate, instinctive calculation of the day's impending demands, the seemingly endless chores that await, the unpredictable news that might suddenly emerge from the bustling forum, and the constant, nagging, often agonizing calculation of every as and every quadrans, every tiny coin, for what they might or might not be able to afford to eat. If you could imagine, for just a moment, the brutal simplicity and the relentless, constant demand of such an awakening, utterly devoid of modern comforts like alarm clocks or scheduled routines, relying solely on instinct and the earliest light, perhaps you would begin to truly feel the immense, tangible weight of an entire era defined by its profound lack of convenience. The figure slowly rises, their coarse wool tunic clinging faintly to their skin, the rough fabric a constant, unyielding presence. The morning air, though still cool, presents a sharp, almost biting contrast to the stuffy, stale warmth of their small, enclosed room, sending an immediate shiver through their body. There is no luxurious, private latrine here. Such conveniences are reserved for the wealthy patricians or for the public baths, a distant promise later in the day. The street, narrow and already hinting at the day's burgeoning activity, calls to them, an insistent, pervasive reminder of shared space and public necessity. As they take their first few tentative steps out of their humble dwelling, the cramped, shadowy alley, barely touched by the nascent sunlight, already presents a complex symphony of emerging chaos. This cool morning air, despite its freshness, carries an overwhelmingly potent array of smells. The sharply pungent aroma of human waste from the overflowing cloaca, the ancient city's often inadequate sewer system, vying for dominance with the greasy, comforting scent of cheap morning porridge being cooked by a nearby street vendor, or the sharp, acrid smell of charcoal braziers being coaxed to life, their smoke rising in thin, gray plumes. It's a full-on sensory assault, a constant negotiation with the gritty practicalities of their existence. They instinctively step over a small, murky puddle of unknown origin, their gaze already fixed intently on the path ahead, a habit born of necessity and instinct. A mangy, scrawny stray dog darts between the shadows, perhaps on its own desperate hunt for an early meal, a stark, living mirror of their own persistent quest for sustenance. This, they know, is the raw, unfiltered reality of Roman life for the vast majority, far removed from the serene, idealized images painted in grand frescoes. It's a bit like trying to navigate a bustling, modern city street with no personal space, relying only on one's senses and intuition. Except here, the stakes seem just a little higher. The sharp, insistent cry of a street vendor pierces the morning air from a distant alley. Hot bread. Get your hot bread here. A promise of the simple, unadorned pleasures that might define their day. Soon, others will join, their voices echoing through the winding vicus, narrow streets, announcing everything from cheap wine to imported garum. They deftly sidestep a stubborn mule-drawn cart, heavily laden with large amphorae, its driver shouting colorful Latin obscenities, their meaning clear through his exasperated tone. It's a chaotic dance, this Roman morning, a vibrant tapestry woven from countless individual struggles and fleeting, minor triumphs. As they walk, they cannot help but feel a strange, profound connection to this rhythm, this enduring pulse of life that has echoed through these very same streets for centuries. It is not heroic, it is not grand, but there is a quiet, almost resigned admiration for the simple resilience found in these small, repetitive routines. If you were to step into this ancient morning, could you manage to find your way through this raw, unfiltered urban awakening, feeling the unique combination of necessity and timeless motion that pervaded every moment? As the sun begins its slow ascent, casting longer, more defined shadows, the sounds of the awakening city grow more pronounced. The rhythmic clatter of sandals mixes with the distant hammering of a Faber, craftsman, and the sing-song calls of vendors, each voice adding to the unique symphony of Roman dawn. Water carriers, their backs bent under the weight of heavy terracotta jars, move swiftly towards the nearest public fountain, their footsteps echoing with purpose. The communal sharing of water from the aqueducts, Rome's monumental gift of engineering, is a daily ritual, a testament to the city's ability to sustain such a massive population, even if obtaining it is a physical chore. The figure passes by a small taberna shop, its wooden shutters just being unlatched. Inside, the owner, a man with calloused hands, is arranging loaves of freshly baked bread, their aroma a stark, delicious contrast to the street's other odors. This is where most Romans would grab their simple breakfast, bread, perhaps dipped in water or wine. There's no leisurely sit-down meal with coffee and eggs, just quick, functional sustenance before the day's toil truly begins. The sheer efficiency of this basic transaction, repeated countless times across the city, underpins the daily survival of millions. Further on, children at play, surprisingly energetic despite the early hour, can be heard from a small courtyard. They are likely playing with simple toys, perhaps carved wooden animals, clay marbles, or worn leather balls, a timeless image of childhood, even in a world so different from our own. Their laughter, light and unburdened, offers a momentary, fleeting contrast to the prevailing seriousness of adult life, a brief reminder that joy, however brief, finds a way to blossom even in the most challenging of circumstances. This simplicity, the lack of manufactured entertainment, forces ingenuity and connection. If you were suddenly part of this vibrant, noisy street, could you find yourself drawn into the rhythm, perhaps exchanging a quick greeting with a passerby, or sharing a brief, knowing glance with another weary traveler in this ancient human current? The light intensifies, illuminating details previously lost. Intricate patterns carved into a doorframe, the peeling paint on a forgotten fresco, the uneven wear on centuries-old stones that have witnessed countless lives like their own. Every surface tells a story, a silent narrative of time and endurance. The warmth on their skin grows steadily, a precursor to the midday heat. The distant sounds of the forum, once a mere whisper, are now becoming a low roar, signaling their approach to the heart of the city's public life, a place of commerce, politics, and social interaction, where the fate of many might be subtly influenced by the day's events. The journey to work, for many Romans, was not just a commute. It was an immersion into the very fabric of the city's existence. With the cacophony of the awakening insula and narrow vicus left behind, the figure now moves with a more defined purpose. Their stomach, having been momentarily silenced by the thoughts of the day's tasks, begins to rumble again. The light warmth from within, a brief truce against the gnawing hunger, is already fading. The promise of the forum, or perhaps a busy Macellum market, nearer the winding Tiber, draws them onward, for it is in these bustling hubs that the possibility of daily labor, however arduous, can be found amidst the endless crates and carts. The sun, now visibly higher in the sky, its relentless rays cutting through the last vestiges of morning mist with an intensity that promises the full, oppressive heat of a Roman summer day, begins its dominion. The very air above the distant rooftop shimmers, a clear sign of rapidly rising temperatures, signaling that the respite of dawn is definitively over. Their tunic, made of coarse wool, is already clinging uncomfortably to their skin, damp with the first sweat of the day. A thin, pervasive layer of dust, an ever-present companion in this bustling city, has begun to stubbornly adhere to every exposed inch of their skin and hair, forming a second, abrasive, and irritating layer. Their throat, in response to the dry, warm air, feels perpetually parched, a constant, nagging thirst that often accompanies a Roman day, especially when the nearest public fountain might be several blocks away, its water possibly too warm to be truly refreshing, or guarded by a surly public slave. The fleeting, momentary shade offered by an awning, or the rare pockets of cool, damp air within a particularly narrow alley, a welcome reprieve that smells faintly of wet stone and a lingering hint of food, becomes a precious commodity, a blessed, momentary relief from the relentless glare and scorching heat of the exposed street. If you could experience this pervasive dust and thirst, you might truly appreciate the simple relief that clean, cool water offers in your modern world, a luxury often taken for granted. As they continue their journey, their path often takes them past various workshops and storefronts, offering glimpses into the everyday tools and crafts of ancient Rome. They might see a Faber craftsman, shaping metal with a heavy hammer, the rhythmic clang of his work echoing through the street, or a sartor, tailor, meticulously cutting fabric with primitive shears, perhaps made of bronze or iron, laid out on a worn wooden table. These are not the sophisticated, precision instruments of today, but ingenious adaptations of natural materials, honed over centuries. The aroma of freshly cut wood from a lignarius carpenter, or the earthy scent of clay from a fig linus potter, working at a simple, foot-powered wheel, might waft past. Such tools, though basic, were the bedrock of Roman society, enabling everything from the construction of mighty aqueducts to the creation of simple cooking pots. Approaching the market, the cacophony grows, assaulting their ears not as a soft hum, but as a vibrant, roaring wave of sound. The shrill, competing cries of vendors offering everything from exotic spices brought from distant provinces to fresh fish, still gleaming from the Tiber, displayed on rough wooden tables. They hear the bleating of tethered goats awaiting slaughter, the lowing of cattle, and the ceaseless chatter of shoppers haggling furiously for every as, their voices rising and falling in a rhythmic dance of commerce. The smells here are even more intense and varied than in the alleys, the sharp, briny scent of fishmongers mingling with the earthy smell of fresh vegetables and aromatic herbs, the cloying sweetness of piled dates and figs, and the truly pungent, inescapable odor of garum, the ubiquitous Roman fish sauce, a smell so powerful and omnipresent it could almost define a Roman market, clinging to the air and the clothes of everyone present. It is an overwhelming sensory experience, a bit like entering a bustling, modern open-air market, but amplified by the sheer lack of modern amenities, with raw, unrestrained life at every turn. Having navigated the bustling arteries of Rome, the figure now finds themselves within the immediate vicinity of the Forum, a vast, open expanse pulsating with an entirely different kind of energy. Here, the clamor of the market yields to the more dignified, yet equally intense, murmur of conversations, debates, and transactions. The air, though still carrying faint echoes of distant street smells, is now predominantly filled with the scent of human activity. The dry, dusty smell of ancient stone warmed by the sun, the faint, metallic tang of coinage, and the subtle, earthy aroma of the many scrolls and parchments being unrolled and discussed. This is the heart of Roman public life, a place where social hierarchies are visibly, constantly, and rigorously on display. Their attention is drawn, almost instinctively, to the imposing facade of a large, meticulously decorated domus, a private townhouse, belonging to a wealthy patron. The sight of such a dwelling, with its grand entrance, polished bronze fittings, and perhaps a glimpse of an inner garden, stands in stark, almost brutal contrast to their own humble insular room, a visceral reminder of the vast chasm separating the lives of the rich and the poor in this ancient metropolis. For this person, as for countless others, the relationship with a patron is not merely a social nicety. It is often the very bedrock of their existence, a complex web of obligation and dependency. Each morning, many freeborn Romans, particularly those of lower social standing, would present themselves at their patron's home for the salutatio, a morning greeting ritual. This was a critical daily event, a chance to show respect, offer services, and, crucially, to receive meager alms or perhaps an invitation to the evening meal, which could be the only substantial food of the day. The process of the salutatio itself is an exercise in patience and humility. They wait, along with many others, in a throng of hopefuls, former soldiers, struggling artists, indebted farmers, and tradesmen, all jockeying for a position that might catch the patron's eye. The air is thick with anticipation and thinly veiled desperation. Voices murmur in hushed tones, broken by the occasional, sharp command from a household slave managing the queue. The sun, now well established in the sky, begins to beat down with a vengeance, its warmth penetrating the thin wool of their tunic, reminding them of the long hours that stretch ahead. If you were to stand in such a queue, your survival potentially depending on a fleeting gesture of generosity, how would you manage the blend of hope and quiet resignation that permeates the atmosphere? When their turn finally arrives, it is brief, almost perfunctory. The patron, perhaps a man of stern countenance and draped in fine toga, acknowledges them with a quick nod, his gaze already moving to the next supplicant. There are no warm greetings, no personal inquiries, just a swift, transactional exchange. They might receive a small handful of coins, perhaps a sportula, a basket of food, or a simple instruction for a task to be performed that day, perhaps carrying messages, running errands, or assisting with minor repairs. This small payment, often barely enough for a single meal, is crucial. It's the difference between sustenance and hunger, between a chance at survival and the bleak prospect of an empty stomach. This small coin, or handful of grains, represents not just value, but hope. It binds patron and client in a rigid social contract that, for all its inequities, provides a fragile form of stability in a world where safety nets are non-existent. With their morning obligations met, the true toil of the day begins. They might be dispatched to the crowded docks of the Tiber, helping to unload heavy sacks of grain from distant provinces, their muscles straining with each lift. Or perhaps to a construction site, where the air is thick with dust and the relentless sound of chisels on stone, shaping the very infrastructure that defines Rome. They could be tasked with cleaning a street, collecting refuse, or aiding in the transportation of goods for a merchant. Each task, however menial, contributes to the vast, intricate machinery that keeps this colossal city alive. The rhythmic nature of such physical labor, the constant push and pull against the weight of the world, can become a kind of meditation, a numbing yet honest engagement with the physical reality of existence. There is no concept of office hours or lunch breaks as understood today. Work simply continues as long as there is light and strength. As they labor, their hands growing rougher, their tunic absorbing more dust and sweat, they are surrounded by the hum of Roman life. The shouting of foremen, the rhythmic groans of winches, the distant cheers from the Circus Maximus, where chariot races might be underway. A stark reminder of the leisure enjoyed by others. The sun climbs higher, intensifying the heat. The simple tools they use, a basic shovel, a worn basket, a crude rope, feel like extensions of their own tired body, fundamental to their daily purpose. This is a life of direct interaction with the physical world, where effort translates immediately into outcome, a stark contrast to the often abstract nature of modern work. If you were to find yourself immersed in such direct, physical labor under the Roman sun, stripped of modern machinery, what resilience might you discover within yourself, simply to keep pace with the demands of the day? As the sun begins its slow descent, painting the Roman sky with hues of orange and purple, the day's relentless heat finally starts to recede, yielding to the cooler, more forgiving air of evening. The weary figure, their muscles aching from hours of relentless labor, feels a profound sense of relief as the shadows lengthen. This transition from day to night in ancient Rome is not merely a shift in light. It's a fundamental change in the city's rhythm and a rare opportunity for respite. The intense, purposeful clamor of daylight commerce and toil begins to soften, giving way to a more relaxed, though still vibrant, hum of social activity. The air, once thick with dust and the sharp scents of the market, now carries the inviting aroma of cooking fires from open hearths and the sweet, lingering perfume of night-blooming jasmine from the hidden gardens of the wealthy, offering a subtle, aromatic promise of relaxation. For many Romans, including our figure, the public baths, or thermae, are a central fixture of evening life, a social institution unlike any modern equivalent. More than just a place to cleanse the body, the baths are a hub of community, relaxation, and even light entertainment. Imagine stepping into a vast complex, its vaulted ceilings echoing with the sounds of splashing water, lively conversations, and the distant thud of exercise. Unlike the quick, private showers of today, a visit to the baths is a ritual, often lasting hours. One might first engage in light exercise in the palestra, perhaps wrestling or throwing a ball, before moving through a series of rooms: the apodyterium, changing room; the tepidarium, warm room; the caldarium, hot room; and finally the frigidarium, cold plunge bath. Each step is designed not just for hygiene, but for therapeutic effect, a deeply ingrained part of their daily wellness routine. Inside the baths, the figure would find people from all walks of life mingling freely: senators discussing politics, merchants haggling quietly, and slaves attending to their masters. The air is humid and warm, filled with the comforting scent of olive oil, used for cleansing and massage, and perhaps a faint hint of wood smoke from the hypocaust system, the ingenious underfloor heating that warms the rooms. This communal space offers a rare sense of equality, where rich and poor alike share the same facilities, at least for a few hours. There are no phones to distract them, no screens to glow, just direct, unmediated human interaction. This shared experience, the simple act of bathing and socializing, creates a unique bond, a sense of collective belonging that is often absent in the more isolated experiences of modern life. If you were to shed the stresses of your day in such a grand, communal space, enveloped by steam and human connection, might you find a different kind of peace than your solitary modern rituals provide? After the baths, if their meager earnings permit, the figure might seek a simple evening meal. For many, this would be a humble affair at a papina or kalpona, a local tavern or inn. Here, sitting on rough wooden benches, they would join other working Romans. The fare is basic: perhaps some lentil stew, a piece of flatbread, olives, and watered-down wine. It's not a gourmet experience, but a nourishing end to a demanding day. The atmosphere is convivial, filled with the low hum of conversation, the clinking of earthenware cups, and the occasional burst of laughter. Stories are exchanged, rumors are spread, and the day's burdens are momentarily shared. This simple, shared meal strengthens social ties, a fundamental aspect of ancient Roman life that contrasts sharply with the often individualized meals of modern society. As the deep Roman night fully descends, illuminated only by the flickering glow of oil lamps and the occasional torch, the city takes on a new character. The streets, still busy but less frenetic, carry the sounds of distant revelry from the homes of the wealthy and the muffled footsteps of night watchmen. The figure would make their way back through the dimly lit, labyrinthine alleys, perhaps guided by the familiar silhouette of the Capitol or the faint murmur of the Tiber. The cool night air, now truly refreshing, offers a final, peaceful embrace. Thoughts of the next day, with its predictable demands and unforeseen challenges, begin to stir. But for now, there is the simple satisfaction of survival, of having endured another day in the ancient world. They retreat to their small room, the straw mat awaiting, and as sleep slowly claims them, the sounds of Rome, ever present, fade into the gentle murmur of dreams. If you could feel the quiet solitude of such a Roman night, knowing you had met its challenges, perhaps you would appreciate the quiet resilience of a life lived so directly with the earth and the sun. As the deep Roman night fully descends, a different kind of quiet begins to settle over the city. The shouts of vendors fade, and the clang of workshops ceases. The streets, softly cloaked in shadows broken by oil lamps and distant torches, offer a profound invitation to rest. For the figure, the journey back to their cramped room is a descent into solitude. There are no streetlights, navigation relies on memory and the faint outlines of buildings. The night holds a degree of vulnerability, yet also brings a sense of peace, away from the day's scrutiny. Upon returning, preparations for sleep are simple, dictated by necessity. There's no elaborate routine, just a quick rinse and the loosening of the coarse tunic. Then, the familiar embrace of the thin straw mat on the hard floor. The sounds of the insula, a baby's cry, muffled arguments, snoring, are reminders of the human hive. As they lie still, body heavy with fatigue, mind slowly drifting between memory and rest, thoughts come gently. The day, filled with labor, also wove subtle lessons not from scrolls, but from watching and doing. Knowledge was lived, not read. The world itself was the teacher. They recall the farmer reading the soil, the craftsman learning from touch and repetition. Even amid the market chatter, they learned to listen for vital news, a whisper about grain, a rumor, an imperial decree. Rome itself taught, its arches, aqueducts, and temples silently conveying lessons in engineering and human will. This practical knowledge brought responsibility. Problems were physical, urgent, and solved through resilience and ingenuity. This quiet wisdom, etched into the body, now rests with them. Sleep, when it finally comes, is deep and restorative, a vital necessity after relentless toil. No screens or notifications disrupt their rhythm. Their internal clock, tuned to the sun, dictates their rest. The quality of this sleep, despite the lack of comfort, is profound, a natural surrender to exhausted demands. The city sleeps, but never entirely. Vigiles patrol, dogs bark, the Tiber murmurs. These sounds cradle the Roman sleeper, a symphony that becomes a soothing backdrop. Their sleep is shaped by a profound connection to the natural world and the demands of their body, a powerful reset button. As the Roman night reaches its deepest point, shrouded in a profound darkness that modern cities rarely experience, the figure lies on their simple straw mat, the sounds of the ancient world slowly fading into the background of their consciousness. The distant murmur of the Tiber, the occasional hoot of an owl from a forgotten ruin, the soft rustle of leaves carried on a gentle breeze. These are the subtle lullabies of ancient Rome, a stark contrast to the continuous hum of electricity and distant traffic that defines modern nightscapes. In this pervasive quiet, broken only by the timeless whispers of nature and the sleeping city, the mind is invited to drift, to process the day's relentless demands, and to wander into the realm of dreams. For the Roman sleeper, dreams are not just a chaotic jumble of images, but a powerful, often mysterious, part of their existence. In a world without scientific understanding of the brain, dreams were frequently seen as omens, messages from the gods, or glimpses into the future. They might reflect the anxieties of the day, the uncertainty of tomorrow's work, the fluctuating price of grain, or the health of a loved one. Yet, they also offered a unique escape, a mental journey beyond the rigid social structures and physical limitations of their waking lives. In dreams, a commoner could fly above the forum, a slave could feast with emperors, or a lonely soul could reunite with lost family across vast distances. This nightly freedom of the mind, unburdened by reality, was a profound psychological release, a vital counterpoint to the disciplined, laborious grind of their daily existence. If you were to step back from your screen-filled modern life and experience dreams as your ancient Roman counterpart did, as direct, meaningful communications, unclouded by rational interpretation, how might your understanding of your own subconscious shift? Perhaps in their dream, our figure walks through a perfectly ordered Roman garden, an ideal hortus filled with fragrant roses and murmuring fountains, a stark contrast to the dusty, crowded alleys of their waking life. Or they might find themselves in the sprawling, fertile fields of Campania, far from the city's din, feeling the cool earth beneath their bare feet, the scent of fresh harvest in the air, a pastoral ideal often celebrated in Roman poetry, yet a distant reality for most urban dwellers. These dreamscapes, however fleeting, provide a crucial psychological balm, allowing the mind to wander into realms of aspiration and beauty, offering a temporary reprieve from the harshness of reality. They are a reminder that even in the most challenging lives, the human spirit yearns for beauty, peace, and abundance. As the dream continues, our figure might encounter symbols deeply rooted in Roman culture, the watchful eyes of Lares, household gods protecting their meager abode, or the stern visage of a distant ancestor offering silent guidance. They might witness a procession of Vestal virgins, guardians of Rome's sacred flame, moving gracefully through a moonlit temple, their presence symbolizing purity and the eternal continuity of the city. Or perhaps they hear the faint, echoing chant of a Sibylline oracle, her enigmatic prophecies swirling in the air, hinting at the grand, often turbulent, destiny of the empire. These cultural touchstones, ingrained from childhood, shape the dream narrative, grounding the individual in a shared mythology that provides both comfort and a sense of collective purpose. This ancient sleep, punctuated by the natural cycles of the sun and moon, and largely free from artificial light or constant noise pollution, allowed for a deeper connection to the body's innate rhythms. Without alarm clocks, Wakefulness was dictated by the first blush of dawn or the natural completion of a sleep cycle. This unforced rhythm likely contributed to more consistent, higher quality rest, enabling the body and mind to fully recover from the day's exertions. This inherent biological tuning, a harmony between human physiology and the natural world, is a powerful lesson from antiquity. If you could realign your sleep to this ancestral rhythm, guided purely by light and darkness, rather than schedules and technology, how might it fundamentally alter your daily energy and overall sense of well-being? As our journey through a single, arduous day in ancient Rome comes to an end, and the faint, almost imperceptible promise of a new dawn begins to touch the distant rooftops, we are left with a profound appreciation for the enduring legacy of this monumental civilization. The bustling streets, the architectural marvels, the complex social structures, and the daily grind of survival, all these elements coalesce to form a vivid tapestry that continues to influence our modern world in countless, often unseen, ways. Rome, the eternal city, was not merely a place. It was an idea, a force, a crucible of human endeavor whose innovations and challenges echo through time, shaping aspects of our lives that we often take for granted. Consider the very concept of urban living. The Roman insula, an early precursor to modern apartment buildings, grappled with density and sanitation. The vast network of aqueducts laid groundwork for sophisticated water supply systems. Even the rudimentary sewer system represented an essential step towards urban sanitation. If you reflect on the invisible infrastructure that supports your daily urban life, from the water flowing from your tap to the waste managed discreetly, how much of it silently whispers of Roman ingenuity? Beyond infrastructure, Roman contributions to law, governance, and language are omnipresent. Principles of Roman law formed the bedrock of legal systems. The idea of a republic draws heavily from Roman political thought. Latin lives on in countless words, enriching our vocabulary and offering a direct linguistic link to this ancient world. It is the language of science, medicine, and law, a subtle but persistent reminder of their intellectual reach. Even the simple tools and crafts observed in our figures' day reflect universal principles of design and utility. The smith's hammer, the carpenter's saw, the potter's wheel, these are direct ancestors of modern machinery. Innovation is often incremental, built on foundational understanding. Roman emphasis on practicality and efficiency laid a groundwork that generations built upon. If you examine the basic tools you use daily, stripped of their electric or digital enhancements, can you see the enduring echoes of their Roman counterparts, proving that true utility often lies in elegant simplicity? Perhaps the most profound legacy of ancient Rome lies not in its grand monuments or its legal codes, but in the enduring spirit of human resilience and adaptation that we have witnessed through our figures' day. Life was harsh, demanding fortitude and a practical outlook. Yet, amidst challenges, there was community, purpose, and simple pleasure. Communal baths offered solace, shared meals fostered connection, and the city's rhythm provided a sense of belonging. This unwavering ability to survive, build, create, and thrive stands as a timeless testament to the human spirit. This quiet history reminds us that progress is also about understanding fundamental human needs for water, shelter, community, meaningful work, and restorative rest. The simplicity of life in ancient Rome offers a unique perspective on what truly matters, inviting us to sleep smart not just by resting our bodies, but by quieting our minds with stories that connect us to the enduring past, fostering a deeper appreciation for the present. And with that, our journey through this ancient Roman day comes to a gentle close. Whether you've drifted off to a peaceful slumber, and if so, fantastic, you're already sleeping smarter, or if you're still with us, perhaps just a little more relaxed and a touch more knowledgeable about the past, thank you for joining us. We hope these quiet histories continue to guide you to a more profound and restful sleep. Thank you, and have a good night.